Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with Sabrina Seavey for another episode of the Mindful Constitution podcast. I haven't done a podcast in like a month. I'm feeling a little rusty, but we're welcoming Sabrina today, who is a full spectrum doula. She is owner of Through the Fog Doula Services. She's also VBAC-certified, which, if you aren't familiar, means vaginal birth after cesarean. Hello, Sabrina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. We've been actually planning this podcast episode for literally like a year, but then
Yes.
Sabrina kept getting called into birth. So yeah, we've finally landed on a time that works for both of us.
We
So
did, we did. And thank goodness I've been looking forward to it.
I know, I'm excited. So yeah, today we're going to be digging into exploring the birthing process, her role, also just the innate wisdom that a woman's body has. We're going to be talking about the medical system, the ways society either empowers us or disempowers us to trust our body's wisdom. And of course, I'm going to have to ask her about her thoughts on the Lindsay Clancy trial that's going on currently.
Yes.
Because, it just seems like on vibe.
It really does, those postpartum vibes.
I know, right? It is wild how when you are postpartum, I've talked to so many women about how when you are postpartum, you think you're fine in your brain, and then as time goes on, you're like, oh, I wasn't fine. Now I'm fine. And then
Yes.
more time goes on, you're like, I still wasn't fine, but now I'm fine. And
Yes,
eventually you're like, I
absolutely.
think I'm back to normal now, like a year
You're
later.
finally out of the woods years later, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's true.
I know. And then you forget just in time to have another baby.
Absolutely. You get that baby fever again.
Yeah. So for starters, I would love to hear your path to becoming a doula, what inspired you to do it, anything specifically you want to share there?
Absolutely. I have been a birth junkie since I was like 2 years old. My parents had the old home camcorder video that they whipped out in the delivery room. And when I was two, they let me watch that video. And I obsessed over it. I watched it over and over again and told everyone my whole life that I was going to help deliver babies. And after I had my two kids, my postpartum experience, my birth experience, the whole thing, learning what a doula was, it kind of just clicked with me that this was the side of birth work that I needed to be on. I have that very like maternal nature. Like I said, I am obsessed with birth. All my friends come to me when they find out they're pregnant or they're headed to the hospital. It's just always been me. Especially my best friend who had her first baby almost 7 years ago. And, I got the phone call to come to the hospital, and I was the first person she left the baby with alone overnight. So I've just always been incredibly passionate about birth, newborns, and postpartum.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe your parents let you watch it too.
I
That's
know
like pretty lit.
some kids would be traumatized, and me, I was like, give me more.
You're like amazing.
Yes, I was.
I would
I
love
was
to help
bonded.
facilitate that.
Yes, yes. I was the 8-year-old watching a baby story on TLC, truly.
That's, oh my God, a baby story.
Yeah, that was my jam.
Whoa, TLC is like a throwback. Trading Spaces.
Such a great, great network.
I know. Man, is that they still going strong,
I
TLC on
think
cable?
so. I think so. Maybe.
Wow. And didn't it have Wife Swap too? Is that
It
TLC?
totally did have wife swap. I
Yeah.
used to watch that
There's
with
some
my
good
mom.
ones. There's some epic throwbacks over on TLC.
There is.
So, yeah, how do you feel that your preconceived notions about what being a doula was and is aligned with your actual experience of doing it?
Absolutely. I thought it would be demanding, which it is.
Mm.
I knew it would be tiring, which it is. Um, but I didn't know just how addicting it would become, I guess you could say. Um, I see something different in every birth I attend, whether it's something new for me to learn, something for me to celebrate with a mom that I haven't seen before. And I always let them know, like, never seen this. This is great. All those kinds of things. I just never knew I would see such strength, truly. I really didn't. And I've seen some truly amazing things happen, some very sad things happen. I've seen it from both sides. I didn't, know that I would play a role in a death at one point, but I did. So it kind of, touches both sides of the spectrum. There's bringing life in and there's, death. And as a birth doula, I've worked with both already in my 16 months of attending births.
Yeah. So can you tell us more about what happened with the death and how did you navigate that? It must have been, I mean, as the support person there, that's pretty heavy. What was that like?
It sure was. It was actually the first birth I had attended. And this was an IVF pregnancy. So one that was very hardly worked for. Not that any others aren't, but, they had to work a little harder. There was some complications with the pregnancy, but nothing that should have resulted in what happened. And unfortunately, during the delivery, the baby passed away and they were able to revive him 27 minutes later, I believe. And then for the few hours he lived after that, he was on, life support, and what the parents were told he was just going to be brain dead essentially. So, they had to make that really tough decision to let him go. And it was almost actually a year ago. It's coming up. And so, that was an experience that I didn't obviously expect right in the beginning, but it made me realize how important it is for the partner to have a doula in the space, because had I not been there, that dad would have been alone in the delivery room waiting to find out what was going on with his wife and baby for over an hour. But I was able to be there. And even though it was, silence, it was supportive silence and us just being together. And so he wasn't alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an amazing doula for my own birth too, and I think we often think the doula's there to support the mom, but it's just as much a support system for the dad too. I think a
Yes.
lot of dads feel helpless in the birthing process, and so having somebody there, especially for parents who are going through it for the first time, I feel like it's just as comforting for the dad as the mom.
Absolutely, absolutely, because they are kind of, not sure what to do and when to do it. So having somebody there that can coach them through that and teach them how to do that, it's actually a big part of what I do, and it's not something I expected as much. And I really enjoy teaching dads how to support, their wives in the birth
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, I bet that translates so far beyond the delivery room too, being like, hey, buddy, that's not helpful, okay? This is going to be helpful.
Yes,
Stop
absolutely.
saying that. Start saying this. There's definitely certain things where you're like, can you not fucking say that? Okay. It's not.
For sure. For sure.
So, with that first experience, what was there something that happened that was like a complication, or was it just totally?
There was definitely a complication. I don't know if we'll ever really know what truly went wrong. But they did, you know, not do an autopsy or anything, because that's probably something very hard and they might not want to really explore. However, I do think that there was a little bit of hospital negligence involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quick enough reactions to the baby showing signs of distress. And it may not be, anybody's fault, but it felt a little like it just shouldn't have happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Could have been
God,
avoided.
I can't imagine going through something like that. You're pregnant for a whole 9 months, especially the IVF journey, and then you get there and like that just.
Yeah.
And what the heck are the chances that's the first birthing that you're a part of?
Yes, it was definitely rough, but they actually invited me as the only outsider to come to the baby's funeral. So I felt like being in that space was helpful for them, and they felt comfortable enough to have me in another extremely vulnerable space. And I hope that I was able to have some sort of positive impact on them.
Oh, yeah.
I set up a meal train for them, brought them a few meals, did whatever I could, postpartum for them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just definitely something I didn't expect to experience in this field right in the beginning.
For sure. I mean, dang, that's like really getting thrown in there
Yeah,
uh,
intense.
for your first time. And speaking of which, I know, the role of the doula goes very far beyond the actual labor and delivery. So you share a little bit more about your role and how you support moms and families throughout pregnancy or postpartum. What's your full spectrum of your role look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I work with moms that are still pregnant, it's a lot of late night texts with, TikTok links of, is this real? Is this true? Can we do this? Can we make my room look like this? And I love it. Um, we go over birth preferences. We talk about risks and benefits of all the things that may happen in the birth space. We talk about the vibe they want to bring, how they want me to make the room feel. I'm very good at reading a room, relieving tension with medical staff. I feel like it's very important to do that as a doula, rather than go in as a shark ready to attack,
Mm,
personally. Um, but then, when we're in this space, I am there to provide pain relief, education, help them make decisions, make sure, mom has cold water at all times, dad is stepping out to eat when it's a good time, not when mom is fully dilated about to push, because they love to do that.
you're like,
And
get your
then
ass back in here, buddy.
I have called dads back from Panera and Brigham many a times. Really have. And then, postpartum, any resources they might need. So if they're looking for outside lactation, if they're looking for any type of body work for themselves or their baby, helping them around the house, meal prepping, making lists of ways that people can help. So they're not going up to mom saying, what do you want me to do? Nobody wants to answer that question when they're newly postpartum running on 2 hours of sleep with a baby on their boob. So just, helping moms set these things up before baby comes, having them ready and having systems go is a big thing I do postpartum.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, start to finish, basically being that bridge to resources. You're an advocate. You help
Concierge.
soften the edges around all, the experience. I love that too. The being the intermediary between the medical staff and
Yes.
the parents is really nice. Sometimes you just want someone who knows your preferences and who can relay that to the medical staff. It just really softens the whole experience. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, tell me about through your experiencing witnessing birth so many times, like what about women's bodies surprises you the most? What have you learned about what we are capable of?
Yeah, I have seen some really, really incredible things. I had one mama that had two cesareans and decided to do a VBAC,
Mm,
and she pushed her baby out in 6 minutes. Incredible, unheard of, just absolutely amazing after two cesareans being able to do that. I had another mama that was doing a VBAC actually, and she did have an epidural, but she was laying in her bed and she said, something feels weird. And we lifted her blanket and her baby was coming out, just birthing itself. And this baby was born with a tooth. So
that baby was ready to go.
that baby was ready. That baby was fully cooked. Um, I've seen women go from I can't do this to pushing through and delivering an almost 10-pound baby vaginally with no medication. I've seen women do incredible things with an epidural because there's a lot to be said for birthing a baby with an epidural. You can't feel the pressure that you need to feel to where you need to push. So both ways you're a powerhouse. Even if you have to have a cesarean, the recovery that women have to go through from a cesarean is incredible. The anxiety that comes with having a cesarean, I just truly think that no matter what journey you went through to have your baby, you have to be brave and strong to get through it, and every woman that has is.
Yes, that was honestly one of my biggest fears with Arthur was a cesarean, and I
Yes.
was so nervous about, I'm like, I just really don't want to have to get a cesarean, which it's also funny too, like every woman's preference is different. Some women are like, it scares me more to have a vaginal birth, or
Yes, there are
um,
people that opt in for cesareans just because they don't want to deliver vaginally.
yeah, like, oh my God, no, I feel the opposite. And I think part of it too is the recovery of it all and knowing the
Yes.
intensity of it and everything. And so, um, with the VBAC situation, I know a lot of times the medical system's advice or most hospitals would recommend, like, if you've had one cesarean, then you should have the rest the same way.
Yes.
And obviously, being VBAC certified, you know that, like, that's, you can have very healthy vaginal deliveries after cesarean. So I'm curious what you think about what are some of the most what's some of the most like limiting advice you think that the medical system gives women around like labor, delivery, pregnancy, postpartum, anything that you think is, you're like, I don't agree with that, and this is
Yeah,
my opinion on it.
absolutely. I think there is a lot of pressure in a lot of ways. I think one way that I see pressure being pushed, and there's nothing wrong with being a breastfeeding advocate. I am one as well. But there are women that are pushed so heavily to breastfeed when they're in the hospital that it affects their mental health to the point where they get home and they just break and they can't do it. Um, I think there needs to be a little bit more grace given in that aspect. I think that we don't need to be instantly hooking women up to IVs, causing them, less ability to move around and be free in the beginning. There's some reasons that you need the IV right from the jump, like group B strep, you need those antibiotics. But if a mama's coming in planning to labor unmedicated, birth unmedicated, there's no issues. There's no reason she can't just sip her water actively to stay hydrated and avoid having to have that IV hooked up to her so she can labor in the shower easier, in the tub, move from, space to space. I think that's honestly one of the biggest things I hear people get upset about is the IV.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, um, letting people choose their own path. Like I said, with the feeding, there are women that have experienced, sexual abuse, and having that feeling on their breast is not comfortable for them. So they choose to just bottle feed or they choose to do formula. And sometimes they don't want to have to explain that. So if a woman says they don't want to do something, then here, taking no for an answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I think I feel I had Arthur in a hospital, and I did feel like, at least the one I was at, is that they are becoming more, it does feel like more of a partnership with the women. I'm sure that's based
Yeah.
on just like shifting cultural sort of norms and calling out of um, systems that feel a little bit like authoritarian in the medical
Yes.
system. Like, this is what you're going to do. Is like, that doesn't help facilitate like an ease filled birth if you're just dictating how it's going to go for the woman instead of partnering with her. And so it did feel like they're moving in the direction of honoring the woman's preferences and really including her in the process of, what do you want, and we're going to honor your wishes. And so that's cool to see. I'm sure not all hospitals are that way, but
Yeah, it definitely depends on, the provider that people get. But I have been seeing a lot of providers asking for like a birth plan or birth preferences sheet before moms even go into labor so they can put them in their chart. And I actually love that.
yeah.
Um, that way, when you're being admitted through triage, the nursing team can read all your preferences and meet you knowing those things. So they're not asking you all those daunting questions when you're being
Giving
admitted.
birth.
Yes. Yes.
Going through your contractions. Yeah, my hospital did that too. They asked for the birth plan, I think, leading up to, in some point in the third trimester. It was like,
Yeah.
or maybe I just brought it in. I'm like, here you go.
Yeah. You're like, this is what I need you to know.
Exactly.
I
Like,
love it.
you didn't ask, but I have it.
I love it.
Yeah, so another thing I wanted to talk about is, cultural norms that sort of teach us to mistrust our bodies. Just societal programming, the medical system is like being highly critical of our bodies, or I guess not really trusting our innate capacity for birthing. And do you notice that sort of influence in the birthing room?
I do feel like I see it come out in fear in a lot of pregnant and birthing women. I see more now today that a lot of people are taking the time to educate themselves while they're pregnant, which I'm not saying women didn't do before, but I think we're seeing more of it now. They're educating themselves on what they can do with their bodies, what we were, programmed to do. And when there's women that, their birth doesn't go as planned, I always tell them some people need help producing insulin. Some people have to have their appendix removed. Not everybody's body functions as it should. And so, every experience is, in my opinion, beautiful. I just think, you're bringing life into the world, and there can be trauma with beauty at the same time. However, the most I see women not trusting their bodies, it's mostly just from fear of, fear mongering from certain doctors telling stories or saying, this is what's going to happen, or this is what could happen if you don't do this, things of that nature. But yeah, there's some fear.
Yeah, I also feel like it's almost really normal to like commiserate around how horrible birthing experiences are, but you don't hear as many people like sharing. Actually, I had a great experience, and don't worry, like it can be really
Yes.
positive. It doesn't have to be, it can be a really beautiful thing, and it's hard and challenging, but um, it's funny how sometimes in certain areas it's like more normal to complain about it going
Yes.
poorly than it is to celebrate if it goes well. And so I think one
Yeah.
thing that's inspired me to do is when I speak about my birthing experience in a hospital setting, and I got an epidural, and like it all went great, and just like really sharing that without, it's funny. It's like more awkward to be like, no, everything went great. I had a beautiful birth, and be like, oh God, oh God. And so I
Right.
think highlighting the good experiences and the women who've had really beautiful experiences is so important too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because a lot of my clients ask me about both of my birth experiences, and neither of them were traumatic for me in any way. Um, I was induced for a medical reason with my first. I didn't have an issue with that. And my second, I went into labor naturally, and everything went just fine. So,
Yeah.
I'm not someone that comes with a traumatic story, and not everybody does. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that too.
Right, right. It's like we're not making you feel bad by sharing
Right.
positive things. This is kind of a random parallel, but one thing I keep thinking in my mind is how it's like very normal for people to complain about like their husbands, but you
Yes.
don't hear as many women being like, I love my husband. He's great. It's like that
Yes.
bonding over commiseration, but also it's kind of like toxic in a way when that's all there is. It's like it's
Yeah.
good to, share the challenges, but it's also good to like highlight the positives and to like bond
Absolutely.
over highlighting that and to empower people and to be like, it's not weird to like your husband. It's not weird to have a good birth experience too. So
Yes.
these things are also worthy of sharing, and not meaning that you're making anyone's negative experience invalidated, uh,
Absolutely.
but also sharing with other women that there is like beautiful experiences, and um, that we don't need to be afraid. In either way, whether you have a traumatic birth experience or a really positive one, going into it fearfully isn't going to help you in either case.
Exactly. If anything, going in fearfully is going to create tension in your body, and being tense and holding your body tight is not going to help your
Yeah.
labor and delivery. So, really going in loose, surrendered, ready to go within, find
Yeah.
your place, go there. Yeah.
Yeah. So for your two births, you said you were induced for the first one, the second one was natural. Did you get epidurals for both? One, either?
I did. I got epidurals with both of them.
Mm.
I will say I'm a little bit of a Sally when it comes to pain. I'm not going
Yeah.
to lie. I tell everyone now, if I had another baby, I would totally do it naturally. But that's coming from someone whose fiance had a vasectomy. So I'm not having another baby.
Yeah. You're
I'm
like, I
like,
could say this
no,
because I
in
know
my
I won't.
dreams. Right, right.
Yeah.
And I totally would try. I totally would. I've learned so many tools that I did not know before. But yeah, I had epidurals both times. And my second was almost 10 pounds at 38 weeks. And I delivered him in 16 minutes with minimal tearing. So let
Yes,
that be
honey.
all the moms. You've got this. Like you've got,
Yeah.
and I don't find any part of my labors or births traumatic. I think I had great experiences. The part that I find traumatic was my postpartum experience and my little bit of baby blues that I went through.
Yeah. Will you share a little more about that?
Yeah, so I kind of, both times I noticed around 24 hours after delivering, I would just cry for no good reason. I almost felt like in my heart, like I was grieving something in a sense. I don't know if it was the pregnancy bond that we had. I don't know what it really was. It just felt like I was empty in some way. It was terrible. I remember telling my mom that I wanted to flush my head down the hospital toilet, which I did not. And
Interesting.
yeah, it was pretty intense.
Yeah.
I would be home and just everything would make me cry for about the first week and a half. And the only thing that would help in the moments was my fiance telling me to get in the shower. Just go take a shower by yourself. And sometimes I would take the baby with me and just let the water fall on us both. And it was just the most therapeutic thing in the world. I tell all of my clients to do that. But also having a village, having support was super helpful.
Yeah.
But for about 2 weeks after both of my kiddos, I was in a rough place mentally.
Yeah, just 2 weeks is like, that feels like, what is the sort of criteria again when they say if it extends beyond this, it's like more depression, whereas one is
It's
baby
usually
blues versus.
on 2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, really feeling helpless
Right.
and down, not being able to do your normal activities, making statements that are concerning,
Yeah.
not really being able to bond with the baby can be a concerning sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is such a wild time. I remember there was like a euphoric high like immediately after, and I do wonder how that would be different if it was like unmedicated versus medicated. Because I'm like, I did have an epidural, but I also wonder how, because I've heard so many women talk about like giving birth unmedicated as this like spiritually like expansive
Yes.
experience and just like really transformative and transcendental. And I wonder like how is that different from how I felt after an epidural, because I did have a real like high after having Arthur, where immediately after, where I remember thinking like I want like another kid right now, like I want to do this as many times as I can, like that's so cool, I have this baby now, whatever. But then similarly to what you described, it was funny, like the day we brought him home or like a couple days after, it might have been like a week, I remembered my husband was like holding him and he wasn't holding his neck like perfectly, and his mom and his sister were helping us out, and I was like, you have to hold his neck. I just started like burst into tears. I'm like, you're not holding his neck. And just like so protective and vulnerable, like
Yes.
don't let his head flop over, but it's like wasn't that big of a deal. But I was just like just started burst into tears, and then to his mom and his sister, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just think it feels so vulnerable when you've had the baby in your belly for so
Yeah,
long and then they're like out in the world, especially the first time. The second time I'll probably be like, whatever,
absolutely.
they're
It's
fine.
definitely different with the second one, but I will say I like went through a period early postpartum where anyone that held my son other than me or his dad, I made them put the boppy in their lap so they had something to rest their arm on because I was afraid they would drop him. And
Yeah.
these are women that have had several of their own children. They're around babies all the time. I said, I don't care. You're putting that boppy on your lap.
It is funny too, because in the hospitals, like we're so hyper vigilant when
Yes.
it's your first baby, you just feel like they're so fragile. And
Yes.
then they said they wanted us, I think, to stay like 2 or 3 nights. I forget if it was 2 or 3, whatever the standard amount of time is. But we left after one night. We're like, get us the hell out of here. Like we'd
Yeah.
rather just be at home. So we're
Yep.
like, peace. We were asking him the whole time, like, can we leave now? Can we leave? I'm good. Like I'm good. Let's go. I felt like good at the minute I gave birth. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go home. But it was funny because you know how the first night they wake the baby up like however often to, I don't even know, check their vitals or whatever they're doing.
Yes.
And the nurses, they just like flip, they're so nonchalant about their handling with the baby,
They are.
which did kind of put me at ease because I'm like, all right, like they're doing this every single day and they're like acting like it's like a chicken wing, you know? And I'm like, well, maybe they're not that fragile after all. I don't need to worry so much. They seem to know what they're doing, flopping them around. So, yeah. And I think babies are like newborns are surprisingly resilient and like
They are. They sure.
malleable. I mean, they
Yes.
just shoved themselves, through a birthing canal. So,
Tiny little birthing canal. It's
yeah,
crazy.
they can't like get that easily injured, I guess.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and the other thing I know, like even with just the hospital I did it at, they were very. I didn't want to do like the Hep B shot, and they were. I thought I was so nervous, like going into that, being like, are they gonna like think I'm a negligent mom? Are they gonna give me a hard time? Like blah blah blah. And they were like, okay, no problem.
Yeah. Oh
And I
no, they
like
are
built it up
super
so much
decent.
in my head. And then since then, I've seen more and more like discussions from at the federal level where they're talking about like, yeah, you don't have to do that right away. You can wait. I'm like, well, why have they been putting so much pressure on moms to like do that the day a baby's born? Just seems like a lot.
Yes, it
But
sure does. It sure does. I agree.
yeah, but it seems like the pendulum is swinging more towards the middle of people advocating for their own preferences and not being forced to be like all or nothing, even with the schedule of like, you want to spread these out, you don't want to do them right now. Okay, it's not like quite so, it doesn't seem as much of a controversy, and then there's a little more nuance to like informed consent with the parents. But would you say you've observed the same or?
I would say so. I've actually noticed in the past couple of months, it may have been going on longer, but I've noticed recently that they have been actually doing the baby's first shots while they're still skin to skin with mom, which is
Yeah.
wonderful because I had always
They
seen
used
it
to
done
take them
the warmer.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, so now they're like still skin to skin with their mom. Mom's able to comfort them. It's able to calm them a lot faster. And I think that that's amazing. I
Yeah.
see a lot of people starting to turn away the Hep B and the erythromycin that goes on their eyes.
I didn't do that either. The only thing I did do was the vitamin K because they were like extremely pushy about that. I'm like, well, if I can like get them off my back with just like succumbing to the
Yeah,
vitamin K and then like I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want with the rest of the schedule. So
right,
like
right.
leave me alone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, it's your baby, it's your choice. You know, they should be allowing you to do what you choose to do without any bias coming in. There should be
Yeah.
no bias from your medical staff on what you do.
Yeah, I think it felt very heightened, particularly just because of COVID and like the
Okay.
politicization of like medical choices was like
Right.
seemed to be like on the radar of the collective like increasingly, but now it feels like it's balancing out where it's people are more like, yeah, do what you want to do.
I
Make
agree.
informed choices and like we don't have to be quite so like extreme in our labeling and thinking.
And I love to
Um
see it.
Me too. I'm like, do it. Hey, like, I'm not gonna judge. Like, I felt the same way then as I do now, which is like,
Right.
I think people should do what fits their lifestyle, their parenting, and do it in a way that's like informed and educated in alignment with their values and beliefs. And so it's like, ain't no judgment here.
Absolutely. It's their story, it's their life, and I'm just here to support, their wants and needs as long as it's everybody's safe.
Yeah,
I have no bias when I enter a birth space.
I love that. So, okay, let's see. I do want to talk about Lindsay Clancy, and I'm trying to figure out when we're going to do that. But first, um, what I did want to circle back to that moment of like birthing having the potential to almost be like a spiritual experience. Have
Yeah.
you witnessed like that portal? I feel like it is this like portal where you're like birthing a little being in from the spirit realm, you know? And
Yeah.
so, have you had any births where you felt like it was a particularly potent spiritual experience for the mom that you think of off the top of your head, and like what defines it for you in that manner?
Yeah. So I actually was at a birth last month. It was a mom's first baby, and she did it fully unmedicated. And almost the entire time from when it started to really ramp up, when she was in pain, her eyes were closed. She was just in that space and she was making the same sound, the same noises, and just really going within. I could see
Yeah.
it. When transition like started to happen, right before it was time to have the baby, the sounds were changing, the way that she was moving was changing, like just her tone was getting deeper. And when you've been around birth enough times, you can tell by the sound when babies are coming. Um, and it was almost, she didn't even know she was pushing, and it was just, she was grunting while she was making these sounds,
Yeah.
and I could tell it was happening. And after she had the baby, she would just, I could just see it. I could just see,
Yeah.
she kind of like
Oh,
came back
I
to
just got
her
like
own.
goosebumps.
It was beautiful. It was her first baby, and she was in labor. She had the baby within 10 hours. She pushed for, I think, maybe 20 minutes. It was incredible. She's a
Yeah.
powerhouse, I have to say. But you can almost feel them come back to the room when the baby's there. It's crazy. It really
Like
truly.
it's an out of body experience. They're somewhere else. And I have read, some of the books I read about natural birthing. It was funny too when we were in the delivery room and I was like, I'm going to get an epidural. My husband's like, are you sure? Because you did make me read all those books about unmedicated births and I don't want to like go against your intentions by support. Should I be supported? I'm like, yes, it's fine. Shut up.
I
But
love it.
so yeah, but so I did read like a lot of books that were just talking about how it's almost like the veil is thinner and you go into this like spiritual experience of just transitioning into like birthing the baby, and how it can provide you access to this, yeah, kind of like transcendental experience. And so
It's so true.
I love hearing that you witnessing it as well in the moms is so cool.
It really, really is.
Yeah. So, one thing we were talking about earlier too is obviously things don't always go according to plan. And so, a lot of times we empower women by being like, your body was made to do this, your body was made to do this. And so, how do you provide support to women when like things don't go as planned and it can almost feel like a personal failing? What's your approach to navigating that and helping moms feel supported after birth if things don't go how they want it, or they feel disappointed, or like their body failed them in some way?
Yeah, I kind of go back to that statement again of like, not everybody's body can function as it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So, not everybody can, not everybody poops. Some people have ostomy bags. Not everybody, produces their own insulin correctly. Not everybody keeps their gallbladder in their body. There's all sorts of ways that your body can, if you want to call it improperly functioning, you can.
Yeah.
And birthing is one of those ways it can happen. Some women don't physically have the right size pelvis to push out a baby, and that's one of those things you can't really find out until you're trying to push out a baby.
Yeah.
Um, And I always just, make sure they're connected with all the resources that they could possibly have. Postpartum International is a wonderful resource that has all sorts of virtual support groups. You can go on and sign up for, cesarean support group, moms with postpartum OCD support group, Indian mom support group, all the different things, cultures, ways you raise your children. There's everything.
Damn, that's awesome.
It's wonderful. You can join right when it's starting. It's small groups of women. You can stay at home. You can be covered in spit up, and get that support. So just making sure that people know that that's an option, making sure that, dads know there's options for them as well, and just constantly doing check-ins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think are the ways that, in your opinion, dads can be most supportive to moms throughout the process? And what ways dads can be best supported? Like, how can dads best provide support, and how do you think they can be best supported as well?
I think every woman needs different support from their partner. I've noticed some want hands-on support and some want them holding their hands in their face, talking to them, telling them it's okay, making eye contact, just being that like steady rock for them. I think that within an hour of being in a birth space, I'm able to tell where the man should go and what he should do. So kind of directing him, whether it's giving her sips of water and standing right by her while I do hip squeezes from behind and help her stay comfortable. And then, going back to making sure that they're getting rest, making sure that they're staying nourished, making sure that I'm also attentive to whether or not they're squeamish. So if they're going to pass out, if they see their wife pushing out a baby, I make sure I'm in between the leg, and the husband.
Yeah.
And he's up at her bedside where I can be supporting physically having the baby come out, but also, giving them the opportunity of, hey, the baby's head is right here. Do you want to see it? Do you want that mirror? Things of that nature. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, do you take pictures for the couples that you're,
Oh
if
yeah.
they, yeah, my doula did too. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Explicit
I totally
photos.
I try not to get anything from like the waist down, but I like to, pick up their phones, and if they're doing like the slow dance motion when mom's having contractions, like take little videos for them, and it's always on their phones because I don't need any of this. I get
Yeah.
enough pictures of mucus plugs on my phone.
Yeah, you're like, no. They're like, am I?
Your birth
Yeah,
photos.
you're like, how many mucus plugs have I received from?
Probably at least 20. It's
They're like,
crazy.
is this actually, or what's happening? Am I going into
Yep.
labor?
Yep, I get them all the time, all the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, really making sure that dads feel like they're doing the right thing and they're also being heard is important.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. This whole conversation is so funny because I feel Arthur just turned 3 in May, and we're like starting to think about number 2. I kind of wanted to space him out because I love like being able to work at least part-time throughout the duration of my kid, like my Arthur's and potentially second child's like early years until they go to school. I
Yeah.
like staggering them in that way, but I've definitely been getting more. For a while, I was feeling more worried about it, about how I would manage it all, and now it's like transitioning more to excitement. I think because Arthur is going to preschool, but talking to you, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like reliving it all and getting excited to do it all again.
Right? It's like the baby fever just pops right back up and
Yeah.
you forget any of the pain. You really do. I mean, you know what
Yeah.
happened, but you don't remember what it felt like. And
Yeah.
that's why back in the day, women just kept having babies.
Yeah, it's
That
addicting.
twilight
Like,
birth.
yeah, for sure. It's funny. It's like simultaneously addicting slash like moments where you're like, I'm never fucking doing this again.
Yep, I
What am
definitely
I
had
thinking?
moments.
Yeah, but I am excited for the second time around because I do think that, for me, the first time with Arthur, obviously there's lows and you feel like, oh my God, what did I just sign up for? Because you think of it in like 18 years as opposed to like, this is a phase. They're going to be through it in a month and it'll be a different phase. And like they do gain their independence so quickly in the big scheme of things. Like Arthur's just a little over 3 and I feel like I'm like, okay, bye. Like you're not my baby anymore. You just obviously he'll always be my baby, but it's just like he's so independent and he's now like a little boy. And once you're on the other side of that with the first one, it does make you realize, wow, I'm really gonna savor the process with the second one. I also
Yes.
knew I wanted to have more than one, so you're like in the depths of despair, like this is never gonna end and I'm gonna do it again. Like
Yeah,
now
right?
I'm like, oh, it does end and the next one will probably be the last. So I'll be in a different mindset. But
Yeah.
oh, all things considered, I do feel like I had a great pregnancy, great birth, and like postpartum definitely has its moments, and I'm not super eager to like go bald again. I was like,
Postpartum
Mom,
girl.
I'm literally going bald. I have thin hair as it is. Like, oh, it's just crazy how much hair
I
falls
love it.
out. Like,
It's
no
true.
more. No more. I was like joking around about being Smeagol. You know, he has like 5 hairs. That's what I felt like postpartum.
That's
Like, I feel like Smeagol, like my precious with my little baby. Oh my God. So, okay. Okay, this is a good question that I really wanted to ask too. So, from like both sides, from like this medicalized side of birthing to the more natural side of birthing, I'd love to hear like your perspective on both. Like anything you think is over medicalized that needs adjusting, or anything that we can kind of like romanticize about natural or unmedicated birth that is oversimplified that could use it adjusting. Like, what are your thoughts on both ends of the spectrum?
Absolutely. I think that when it comes to natural birth, there's all sorts of videos that people are posting these days, and it's
Oh,
showing clips of them, and it just
water
looks
birth.
so beautiful and peaceful. But I bet you in between those clips, it is not as peaceful. Some women are, and that's great. Props to you if you can stay calm and quiet. Um, but I think that there's a lot of pressure for women to not get the epidural these days because it's almost like an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I feel like when people have a natural, unmedicated birth, they feel that they accomplished something.
It's like a
And you
badge of
do,
honor.
yes. But you also accomplish something when you get an epidural.
Yeah.
And, sometimes women need that epidural for their body to relax and make change. Um, I think that there's over medicalizing a lot with Pitocin and just rushing
Yeah.
women. I think that they're trying to free up beds at all times in all hospitals, and that's,
Business.
understandable. Right. Um, you know, I think unfortunately that causes a lot of rushing. So I think that we need more birth centers to be opened where women have the opportunity to have these natural, unmedicated, non-rushed deliveries in a safe place. Um, and I think that women need to explore more of their options than just immediately jumping to a hospital birth. I have
Right.
nothing against hospital births. I just think that if you're going to birth in a hospital, do your research on the cesarean rates, the epidural rates, the Pitocin rates. Hire a doula to look into these things for you and to help advocate for you in your preferences for your birth experience.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's a lot of over medicalizing these
Yeah, and
days.
I think that increased Pitocin rate is linked to increased cesarean rates because you're rushing your body. It's not
Cascade of
happening.
interventions, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, intervention, 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 intervention.
Yes.
I know. So I was super nervous about the Pitocin as well. They ended up doing a little bit, but it did slow down my labor. And also, what you said about the epidural, I think is really true though too, because I was having like zero relief in between contractions. It was like one after the other, and I was at like 4 centimeters or
Oh,
whatever. And they're like, it could probably be, another 6 hours before you're ready to like, actively push. And I'm like, I can't imagine like doing contractions with no relief for 6 hours and having the energy and strength to push the baby out. So at
right.
that point, because I knew that like my biggest preference, although I know like, you can only plan so much, but it was to not get a cesarean.
Yeah.
Um, for me, that was just like my own fear and preference. And so And like, okay, weighing your pros and cons, like, should I get an epidural, have rest so that I can push when I need to, or should I like try to strive for this unmedicated birth where I'm going to be like exhausted and that could lead to a cesarean, which is like prioritizing your own preferences and
Yes.
like levels of importance, and also then like having the information and education to make decisions for yourself. I think a lot of people do just hand over their care to the medical staff, which is great if like you don't care how things end up and you're not worried about interventions or whatnot. But if you are, it is important to like have an advocate and inform yourself, because there is like a streamlined way that many hospitals do things, and not every hospital is created equally, but still good to know that like you have to be your own advocate.
Yes, absolutely. And that you do have options and you do have rights in the birth space. And I think a lot of people are afraid to speak up for those things when they don't need to be. I think that the medical teams are getting a lot more open and, hearing people out more and holding the space that they want. I think
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot more of that.
Yeah, because I think there's been more backlash, like exposing the medical industry as a
Mhm.
business. It's like, hey, you want to keep a business in business, you got to kind of align with the preferences of the customers. And more
Yes,
people are recognizing that the hospital space and the medical industry is a business, and that we get to shape those businesses, though, just like anything else. Money
absolutely.
talks. And if we're voicing our preferences more, and or people are choosing not to have hospital births, they're not going to like it.
It's true. It's very true.
So, yes. Okay. All right. Fill me in on Lindsay Clancy. I need your
All
thoughts.
right. So I haven't honestly watched too much of the trial, but just based off of what I do know is what I already could have told anybody for the most part is there's not enough postpartum care for women. In the United States, there just isn't. And I think that the amount of visits a woman gets postpartum after they deliver a baby is absurd. Most hospitals standard, it's one visit. Um, and they simply have you fill out a little questionnaire on your mood, how you're feeling. I'm sure you remember doing this. It's
Mm.
very basic. It's like 12 questions. And then you're just referred out if you answer like you need help. And often, it's to find a therapist or a psychiatrist that can help with, medications, talk therapy, all of these things. But then they have wait lists. I know there's other countries that offer something like a postpartum retreat where you can actually go get these services and help with the baby, which I would love to open something like that if I only had the funds.
Yeah.
Um, I'm starting to see more businesses pop up in Massachusetts, actually, which is where Lindsay is from. I have seen quite a few day programs pop up over the past few years. And I think that that's incredible. When it comes to Lindsay Clancy, I feel like she was not given the care she needed by many people. I think that she was failed by her husband because he left her alone with these children when he knew how she was feeling, what she was thinking. People can tell you that they're having these ideations and they're not going to act on them. But when you hit a level of psychosis, which, she very well could have, there's no saying what you might do, what you might hear, what you might think, what you might say. There's speculation that she wasn't the one that did it, that he did it. There's all sorts
That's
of speculation.
mm,
To be honest, I like to read into these little conspiracy theories. I like to think that she didn't do this. I like to think that she was in psychosis if she did do this. I don't think, from what I've seen, the mother she was, the testimony I've seen, I don't think she just hurt her children for any old reason. I think that there was something very wrong. 12 medications after having her baby is insane. That they had flipped through. I
so
know,
that's what she had been on 12 altogether, or like
I think it
subsequently.
was separate timing. Like they were constantly changing her meds. I think I had heard that she was only on 3 or 4 at a time. Um, but I mean the constant changing of the brain chemistry on top of being 8 months postpartum with 3 children under the age of 6. I just can't imagine how she felt on the inside. I'm sure it felt like she was in fight or flight every day. I'm sure every day was a battle. And, you know, I'm not sure what's going to end up, you know, being the final say, but I truly want to believe and do believe that she was in some form of psychosis, or there's another answer here, because I don't think, based off of what I've seen, the type of woman she was, mother she was, I don't think that she would have done this.
Yeah, the thing about the medications is fascinating too. I didn't know that part. I've known only very superficial like details about this whole thing, but I just thought it was really interesting to hear your take because of the work you do. But that piece of medication information isn't something I knew. And it is interesting because we think a lot about medication contraindications, like medications being taken together and negative side effects of that being physical, like someone having like physical death or problems because their medications are interacting negatively with each other, which is
Yes.
actually one of the biggest causes of like harm in the medical
Yeah.
system is like the unknown effects of medications being combined. But we don't talk about it as much like psychologically. If you have medications combined, yeah, maybe there can be physical side effects, but how is the combination of medication impacting our brain and our mental health too?
Yes. Yes. Especially when a lot of SSRIs are labeled with something that says, you know, this may cause heightened suicidal ideation or thoughts. And if they're constantly mixing these things, and, you know, her
And
brain
what
is,
if there's like alcohol involved or anything too, which
yes,
I find it so wild. Obviously, that's something I think about with the work I do is
right.
how often like therapists and psychiatrists prescribe like antidepressants or anti-anxieties without talking to you at all about your
Yeah.
alcohol use, which like A, you're not supposed to be drinking with those, and B, if you are drinking a lot, like before you get prescribed them, it's like maybe you need to stop drinking first before you're
Yes.
prescribed to a medication and like
Yes.
see how your baseline mental health is without alcohol. And
I
at the
agree.
very least, have a conversation about your alcohol use prior to taking medication and that like you absolutely aren't supposed to be drinking on them. And if you're worried
Right.
about your mental health, it's not helping. It's so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. But I do think that there was something going on in her brain. I don't think it was just a mom killing her children to get
Yeah.
out of being a mom.
Yeah. So from that like vantage point, what do you feel like are the most important things that we should be telling women about the postpartum season?
Yeah.
About
I
the fourth trimester is what they call it,
fourth
right?
trimester. I do love when people say that. I think that women need to be reminded that there's going to be peaks and valleys, just like there is with anything else. There's going to be, you know, a lot of women will probably have the sundown scaries, they call them, when, you know, the sun starts to go down and you
And the
almost,
baby. I
yeah,
didn't know about those, and I was like, "Wow, what's
yeah,
happening? Like
yep,
he's losing
you
his
dread it.
goddamn mind."
It's like, it's like the witching hour starts and then your
Yes.
anxiety starts, and it's just, it's horrible. You know, the sundown scaries are an absolute thing. Um, I think we don't explain things like that to moms, how to get through them, you know, how to reach out for help. I think there needs to be more postpartum support from your medical team after you have your baby. I think that everyone should be connected with a therapist or psychiatrist from the moment they find out they're pregnant, whether it's through your medical team, you do it yourself, your doula connects you with one. Um, you need to have somebody to keep that eye on your baseline throughout your pregnancy and through postpartum,
Yeah.
because no, you know, your husband can watch you, your friends can watch you, but no one's going to really know if you're truly feeling terribly what the next step is.
Or
And
the expert like eye to know like red
yes,
flags and stuff like that. And
absolutely.
I love what you said about from the moment you're pregnant, because for me, that first trimester, I was not myself, honey.
No,
I
no,
was
no.
like filled with rage. I'm like, what? When did I become so like angry and
Yeah.
reactive? And it was that was like the most emotionally turbulent time was like the first trimester. And I think it's interesting too because you're like pregnant, but no one really knows it, and your
Yeah.
husband doesn't really feel like it's real yet either. You're like not showing and
And you feel
stuff.
terrible. You
Yeah.
just want to sleep.
Yeah, I felt very fatigued and I never had morning sickness, thank God, but I felt very fatigued and very angry. Like
Yeah.
just so reactively angry. And so that was wild to see.
Yeah, I
Now I'm
think
like, oh my God, I haven't been like that, like mad. And since then,
absolutely. The beginning
the real
is so
talk.
hard, is
Yeah.
so hard. And, I think having someone to watch you throughout and, keep an eye on your mental baseline is very important.
Even if it's as simple as like normalizing the stuff you're going through to be like, hey,
Yes,
like, you're gonna feel this way now, and if you do, that's
absolutely.
okay. Or like, these are all the range of like things, especially for people going through it the first time. I think now I'll have a lot more grace for myself and manage my expectations of like what of myself accordingly. And obviously, that was 4 years ago, almost now, and so it's just um, understanding yourself and navigating those ebbs and flows a little better. And yeah, I have a friend who lives in the Netherlands now, and she's like, dude, we get postpartum nannies. They come, they like meal prep and check in on the baby for like the first month after the baby's born, and like give you time to
Yeah,
shower and do all this stuff.
incredible.
I'm like, it's part covered by insurance. I'm like, what? It's not right.
Yes, it's incredible. And I will say, if you have Mass Health in the state of Massachusetts, there is doula coverage
Ooh,
for so many
cool.
hours postpartum and for birth. So
And do you
something
take
to,
that kind of
keep in
insurance?
mind.
Yeah. Is that something
I
that
do.
you
I do.
accept? Oh, cool. Cool. I didn't know that
Yeah,
doula
yeah, it's
services could be
great.
covered. That's amazing.
Yes, and they should. They should be covered for everybody. You just never know. There's the 19-year-old that ends up pregnant and doesn't have support because her mom doesn't want to support her. And you could be life changing for her and be
Yeah.
that person that she remembers for the rest of her life that helped her through that transformative experience. And so that's why I wanted to sign up for insurance coverage, because I just want to be able to help everybody.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, last question is after your whole experience thus far as a doula, everything you've witnessed, and if you were talking to a pregnant woman who is just terrified or fearful about giving birth, what would be like the one thing that you would offer her?
I would definitely tell her that she will, in that moment, be stronger and braver than she can even imagine. And let her know that surrendering, being relaxed, feeling calm are going to help her more than feeling tense, anxious, nervous. Breathing is so important. And I think one of the biggest things that women need to remember when they're going into having even just their first baby, their third baby, their fifth baby is a mother is being born when a baby is being born. You'll never be the same person you were before you had that baby. Even if you already have three at home, you're still becoming a new version of the mom you are. And to hold on to that at the end of the day and the beautiful parts of their labor and delivery.
I love that. I think that's so important to remember. And I like that you added on to even if you have children already, you're in a different season of your life. Your parenting is different when you have three kids versus two, two versus one. So I know I certainly got like a different version of my mom at 39 than like my sister at 20. So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, giving yourself permission to like evolve into your role as mother and acknowledge like the transformation it is for you, because I think the mothers get
Yes,
like forgotten like a lot. It's like, you kind of feel like you lose a bit of your identity or fall into the background of your
you
life
do.
sometimes. And so I think acknowledging the transformative like process it is for you as a woman is so important too. I love it.
Absolutely. Celebrate, becoming a mom, celebrate becoming a dad, make it a thing. When you get home from the hospital, have a little cupcake and celebrate together, and talk, like debrief your birth with your partner, talk about it, talk to someone who works in the birth world if there's struggles, and make sure that you feel held and heard and like somebody is holding space for you.
Amazing. Thank you. And for everyone listening, where can people find you and your services and social media,
Yeah, so
website, whatever?
I'm still working on a website, but I have a Facebook through
Mm.
the Fog Doula Services, and I can be emailed at birthwithsabrina@gmail.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me to share your wisdom today, Sabrina.
Thank
And thank you,
you.
everyone, for listening. If this resonated, like, share, and subscribe. And if you are a mom or pregnant or postpartum and you want more info, look for Sabrina's Facebook page. Alrighty, everyone. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye.